Nowadays, mid-range phones are often the easiest devices to recommend, and it's not really down to features, but more down to their price. All of the devices listed here are mid-range smartphones under 15,000 pesos. And at that price, these devices offer some of the best value for performance. Despite being a mid-range phone, there are still some shortcomings like low refresh rate displays, bad camera quality, and many more. So here are the 10 best mid-range smartphones for under 15,000 pesos. The Realme 7i comes with a 6.5-inch IPS LCD panel with a resolution of 1600 by 720 and a pixel density of 270 ppi. It is also protected with a Corning Gorilla Glass and packs a pretty smooth 90Hz refresh rate. The Realme 7i has a quad camera setup consisting of a 64-megapixel main sensor, 8-megapixel ultra-wide, 2-megapixel macro, and a 2-megapixel depth sensor. You could also get 16-megapixel camera for selfies. The Realme 7i packs a Qualcomm Snapdragon 662 CPU paired with an Adreno 610 GPU and 8GB of RAM. Powering the Realme 7i is a massive 5000 mAh battery with support for 18 watts fast charging. The Realme 7i is coming out strong with its price tag, considering that it has 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, having a smooth 90Hz refresh rate, a 5000 mAh battery that can last the whole day, plus an 18-watt fast charging capabilities. In a decent set of cameras with 64-megapixel sensors, the Realme 7i is a great contender for the affordable mid-range segment. The Galaxy M31 features a 6.4-inch Infinity U Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 2340 by 1080, which equates to 403 ppi. It also gets a Corning Gorilla Glass 3 for protection. It has a quad rear camera setup, a 64-megapixel main, 8-megapixel ultra-wide, 5-megapixel macro, and 5-megapixel depth sensor. For selfies, there is a single 32-megapixel shooter. Powering the Galaxy M31 is a Samsung Exynos 9611 CPU with a Mali G72 MP3 GPU along with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of internal storage. While the Exynos 9611 is outclassed at this point by the current mid-range chips, it's still a decent performer. When it comes to battery, the 6000 mAh capacity will easily get you through more than 2 days under moderate usage. The Samsung Galaxy M31 provides a lot more than its huge battery. It also nets decent performance. It's a very capable camera phone. It is certainly justified for everything it is, especially for our users who put battery life above all other smartphone features. Don't be disappointed. The Samsung Galaxy M31 deserves the title of a mid-range battery king. The Vivo V19 Neo has a 6.4-inch screen with a Super AMOLED panel. It has a Full HD Plus 2400 by 1080 resolution with a good pixel density of 409 ppi. It also has Gorilla Glass protection and a pre-installed screen protector. The V19 Neo has a versatile camera setup packing for rear cameras consisting of a high-resolution 48-megapixel primary, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide, a 2-megapixel for effects, and a 2-megapixel for macro. For selfies, the V19 Neo comes with a single 32-megapixel camera. This is for those users who want a high-resolution selfie. Powering the device is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 675 AIE CPU with an Adreno 612 GPU and 8GB of RAM. Keeping the Vivo V19 Neo running is a 4500 mAh battery. The V19 Neo may be overshadowed by the higher V19, but it is good enough to meet the demands of a wide variety of buyers. You're getting an impressive Super AMOLED display, a stylish design, a sizable battery, decent performance, and cameras that surely won't disappoint you. Although it's not as good as the V19 when it comes to performance and front camera versatility. For the price difference, the V19 Neo delivers. The Oppo A92 gets a 6.5-inch Full HD Plus IPS LCD screen with a resolution of 2400 by 1080p, while the bezels on the chin are still similar to the A9 2020. Moving over to the cameras, the Oppo A92 is equipped with 5 cameras, a 48 megapixel primary, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide, a 2 megapixel macro, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. For selfies, it has a 16 megapixel shooter. Moving on to performance, a Snapdragon 665 chipset paired with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage is found under the hood. Keeping the device running is a massive 5000 mAh battery with support for 18 watts fast charging. It's not an easy phone to recommend considering its aging chipset, although there are other devices from competitors that can deliver better performance for the same price range. That being said, the Oppo A92 is still a great daily driver with its large display, premium looking design, decent cameras, massive battery, and dual stereo speakers. The Realme 6 sports a 6.5-inch display. It uses an IPS LCD panel with a resolution of 2400 by 1080 or equal to 405 ppi. What makes this device stand out is the 90Hz refresh rate. The Realme 6 has a quad camera setup consisting of 64 megapixel primary shooter, 8 megapixel ultra-wide, 2 megapixel macro, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. Powering the device is a MediaTek Helio G90T octa-core CPU and Mali G76 GPU. Realme is offering a 4GB and 8GB RAM models. The Realme 6 is the company's attempt at raising the standards of a mid-range smartphone. For its price, you're getting already a great device with a large high-res screen, good performance, versatile cameras, and a large battery. And to top it all off, the 90Hz refresh rate, a feature mostly found in more expensive devices, and given that configuration, the Realme 6 stands out as one of the best value smartphones in the market. The Redmi Note 9 Pro gets a 6.6-inch IPS LCD dot display with a resolution of 2400 by 1080p. It's also protected with Gorilla Glass plus a pre-installed screen protector. We get a quad camera setup composed of a 64 megapixel main shooter, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide, 5 megapixel macro lens, a 2 megapixel depth sensor. For selfies, we get a 16 megapixel front camera. Powering the Redmi Note 9 Pro is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G paired with an Adreno 618 GPU. It also gets a 6 gigs of RAM and 64 or 128 gigs of internal storage. The Note 9 Pro serves a smooth performance. Keeping the phone running is a massive 5020 mAh battery with 30 watts fast charging support and a 33 watt charger included in the box. This phone offers decent cameras and a modest IPS display with a sleek and robust form factor. It's not far from its predecessor. It gets more improved performance paired with reliable battery life for its price. Consider this another bang for your buck smartphone. The Realme 7 sports a sizable 6.5-inch IPS Full HD Plus display with a resolution of 1080 by 2400 and a pixel density of 405 ppi. It also comes with a Corning Gorilla Glass protection with a 90Hz refresh rate screen. The Realme 7 has the same quad camera setup from its Pro version consisting of a 64 megapixel primary shooter, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide, 2 megapixel depth sensor, and 2 megapixel macro lens. Meanwhile, for selfies, it has a 16 megapixel shooter. Powering the Realme 7 is a MediaTek Helio G95 paired with ARM Mali G76 MC4 GPU and 8 gigs of RAM. It has a whopping 5000 mAh battery. The battery can easily last you a day or two if you're a moderate user. Not only does it have a 90Hz refresh rate option, but it also packs highly competitive performance, generous RAM and storage, and a large battery that can fully charge in about an hour or less. The display should be enough for users who aren't into getting an AMOLED panel. The V20 SE has an AMOLED panel, while most phones in this segment settle in IPS displays. It's at 6.4 inches with a Full HD Plus 2400 by 1080 resolution and HDR10 support, and it's stuck at 60Hz refresh rate. The V20 SE uses a Qualcomm Snapdragon 665, which is definitely not the most impressive choice for the price. There's also 8GB of RAM and 128GB of expandable storage. You're getting a 32MP selfie shooter, while on the back, it has a triple camera setup consisting of a 48MP main shooter, an 8MP ultra-wide, and of course the 2MP depth sensor. The V20 SE sports a 4100mAh battery. It also comes with a 33W fast charger. The Vivo V20 is a flashy smartphone. It has a really eye-catching design and has a modern and ideal features like a colorful display, great cameras, long battery life with fast charging, a reliable processor, and a much improved interface for the price. The Nova 7i sports a 6.4-inch LTPS display with Full HD Plus resolution, which is equal to 398 ppi. The bezels are noticeable and not as thin as those found in flagship devices nowadays. The Nova 7i sports a quad rear camera setup consisting of a 48MP main shooter, 8MP ultra-wide, 2MP macro, and 2MP for portrait shots. When it comes to selfies, it has a 16MP camera. The Nova 7i is powered by the high-silicon Kirin 810 with Mali G52 GPU, 8GB of RAM, and 128GB of storage. It's a powerful mid-range configuration that can handle most tasks you throw at it, including gaming. The Nova 7i is equipped with a large battery at 4200mAh, which can last a heavy user a whole day, with some left for the night. The Nova 7i has a beautiful display, excellent performance, good cameras, and a large battery. The best part is that it's priced at just below 15,000 pesos, making it one of the best performing Android phones for the price. The Poco X3 NFC sports a massive 6.6-inch Full HD Plus display with a 140Hz refresh rate with a touch sampling rate of 240Hz for smooth transitions and gameplay. The Poco X3 NFC is equipped with a quad camera setup with a 64MP sensor, a 2MP macro lens, another 2MP for depth sensing, a 13MP ultra-wide, and a dual LED flash on the top. The Poco X3 NFC's main camera can handle 4K up to 30 frames per second and comes with electronic image stabilization for smooth shooting. The Poco X3 NFC is the first smartphone to be equipped with a Snapdragon 732GH CPU. As for memory, you get a 6GB of RAM. The Poco X3 NFC has a large battery capacity of 5160mAh paired with 33W fast charging that is capable of charging up the phone from 0 to 100% in just 65 minutes. Packed with very respectable specs, it's not difficult to say that this could well be the best bang for your buck phone out there. That is all for the list of the best mid-range smartphones under 15,000 pesos. Hopefully you have found what you are looking for. If you have any requests, thoughts, and suggestions, you can leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it would really help me in creating more content like this. You can also check out my other videos by going into my channel. Thank you for watching. See you again on the next video.